It's estimated that 1 in every 5 Indians is poor. Now, the problem with poverty is improving big time. However, when we look at statistics, we see that over 270 million Indians live below the poverty line. And that's crazy to think that a country so massive and diverse and cutting edge as India, that so many of its residents can barely even afford basic needs.
40% of the people don't have house to live. They don't have enough to eat. They don't have the things which they can wear. I think the poverty is the major problem which India is facing nowadays.
And that's a scary thought, because with that there comes a whole lot of other issues like corruption, and that's what I'm going to be touching on next, the corruption in India at number 9.
Hundreds of thousands of Indians took to these streets to protest against corruption, camping out in this area for weeks.
According to the Corruption Perception Index, India ranks 79th in the world, and this is out of 176 countries in total. There have been many scams from people like Vijay Mallya as well as Nirav Modi, who've scammed people out of billions of dollars. They embezzle money and then leave the country and never come back. But it's hard to put the blame on anyone. Like, is it the government system that we can blame, or do we just straight up blame the people of India?
Many Indians feel corruption is still deeply entrenched and on the rise.
In at number 8, we have brain drain. Now, this is a big problem that's pretty scary for the future of India. Brain drain refers to highly trained or very intelligent people moving from one country to another. And in recent years, brain drain has been happening in India at a rapid rate. India has seen an increase in brain drain over 80% since the year 2003. So India continues to be at risk to lose its top scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, as well as its top business people in general. And it's hard to think, because like, India is still a developing country, it's fast growing. Why do people want to go? At number 7, we have teachers.
One of the main challenges to help achieve quality public education in India is overcoming the teacher gap.
For a country with such a big population, the task of educating its residents is a massive task. India just doesn't have enough teachers.
To organize and to coordinate an over-expanding public education system is not an easy task.
India has a shortage of 1 million teachers, and some schools have 1 teacher. That's it. As a matter of fact, according to reports, India has over 100,000 single teacher schools. Now, what's even more surprising is that over 1.1 million teachers in India do not have the proper training to even be a teacher. So oftentimes they're left with the scenario of the blind leading the blind. Imagine showing up to class and you're the one teaching the teacher.
The long-standing problem of teacher shortage in India remains unsolved, and the government continues to appoint and train teachers, the so-called para-teachers.
Now, it's not just a shortage of teachers India faces, but also a major shortage in its doctors.
Healthcare institutions in our country are fraught with an acute shortage of medical staff, and the lack of infrastructure puts a question mark over the healthcare service delivery in the country.
Why this is so scary is that many people have to wait long periods of time before getting treated and being seen by a doctor. Stats show that one doctor in India on average serves 1,668 people.
There is only one government hospital bed for every 1,844 people and one state-run hospital for every 55,591 people.
Doctors are often attacked because, well, people just get fed up with waiting so long. This leaves the doctors to have to protest for their own safety.
Some doctors claim they routinely face threats from patients and their relatives, and they want the government to introduce a law to ensure better security at all hospitals.
Halfway at number 5 in this episode, we have jobs.
The report explains that at the core of the problem are fewer job opportunities, which in turn lead to lower wages.
Estimates indicate that in India there are over 30% of its young people who are actually unemployed. They also aren't in any sort of education system and lack training to even get a job. These stats only take into account people between the ages of 15 and 29. And what makes this exceptionally scary is that more than 60% of Indians are under the age of 35. Next up, I want to look at the judicial system. This number is most likely going to continue to climb, but from the year 2017, India had 2.8 million cases that were pending.
23 lakh cases which are over a decade old are pending in various subordinate courts of the country. Total nearly 2.5 crore cases pending in the lower courts.
But if this shortage of 15,000 judges was met, these cases could actually at least have a fighting chance to be settled in court. So just imagine you're a part of a very big case, or even something small, whatever, right? You'd probably have to wait years upon years to even get a chance to have this handled in court. That must be frustrating.
1,132 civil and 84 criminal cases had been pending for more than a decade.
Everything needs to work together if we have to really sort this out, because the cases only seem to be piling really right from the lowest level to the highest level.
In at number 3, we have the cleanliness of India.
And I have one problem with my country. And the problem is, why is India so filthy?
The objectives of the Swachh Bharat is a campaign to clean up India, and it's to clean up all parts of India, including getting rid of human waste by building more household and public toilets.
In those houses, these houses, or these houses, people don't have any toilets, so everyone just crosses this street and goes to the public toilets right there.
And to have the community hold each other accountable to monitor these toilets.
They have toilets on both sides, this side right here. Every single door has a different toilet.
Contrary to what people believe, the dirtiness of India isn't caused by a lack of money, but rather it's more attributed to people's attitude towards cleanliness.
Our budget goes up 10 times. Do you think our cities will be clean? What do you think? And the answer is no. I think we all realize it's not about money or systems. It is about us as a people.
But hey, it's your country. India is such a beautiful place. If people did work together, imagine how much more beautiful India would look. The population comes in at number 2, and oh man, India has, there's a lot of people. Over 1.3 billion of them.
You can ask a 10 or a 12-year-old what is India's biggest problem, and even a child will be able to tell you: our population.
And that's a scary thought in itself, because it's also a growing number, causing India to suffer from overpopulation.
And yet by 2022, they're saying that we're going to overtake China's population.
Now, if you didn't know, India makes up 17% of the world's total population. And it may sound cool to be the country with the second largest population in the world, and it's, yeah, sure, you can brag about it, but that's a lot of demand for one country to meet. A lot of people to feed, a lot of jobs to create, so we run into problems with India's fast growing and large population. And at number 1, I didn't really want to talk about this, but I gotta touch on the assault on females.
As Stuart Greer reports, the government has toughened laws on sexual violence against women, but it remains deeply entrenched in India's staunchly patriarchal society.
According to the latest numbers in India, there's 106 rapes that happen per day. That's upwards of 40,000 per year. Now, these type of stories often plague the news headlines, and it's a growing concern, not just for women, but for men too.
And most of the predators just get away with it.
A lot of young men and boys, insensitive, very patriarchal mindset, and when they are at large, they are the ones who are attacking women.
Even with the female empowerment movement, this is something that needs a lot more attention, and it's a scary reality that the people of India face.
Indian women are moving out of the shadows, though, and finding a voice in this man's world.
Northeastern India comprises of 8 states. There's Assam, Arunachal Pradesh, Mizoram, Manipur, Meghalaya, Nagaland, Tripura, and Sikkim. Now, northeastern India shares its borders with Myanmar, Bhutan, and China, as well as Nepal and Tibet. Now, all these countries comprise of people of almost the same ethnic group. But even within Northeast India, the population of Northeast Indians is made up of many different races, mainly the Mongoloids, Indo-Aryans, and Australoids, or Austric and Dravidians. Now, I know that in today's modern world, the term Mongoloid is seen as something derogatory, and many use it as an insult for for people with certain forms of handicap. However, for this episode, if I use the term Mongoloid, I do not mean anything offensive at all. It's just for the sake of clarity, and I'm referring to the original use of the term. More specifically, as the term relates to people of East Asia and Southeast Asia. There's archaeological data that confirms that the Mongoloid race used to live in parts of South Asia during the Paleolithic Age. In fact, some anthropologists see modern Chinese people as secondary descendants of Mongoloids. And since people in Northeast India are also descendants of the Mongoloid people, you can see why all of these races share similar physical features. Another point to look at is while the original settlers in Northeast India were the Mongoloids, the Indo-Aryan and other groups arrived later. You can see that there's a huge dominance of the Mongoloid element in the population of Northeast India. Also, in some ancient texts, the northeastern regions belonged to tribes who spoke languages from the Tibeto-Burman family. Then in other parts of the northeast, there was a race of people who reached Myanmar from the Yunnan region of China. Also, the Métis tribe of Manipur state descended from the Tartars who migrated from China in the 13th to 14th centuries. So in short, there are more than 200 fascinating tribes in Northeast India alone who at some point in history migrated from neighboring countries. The neighboring countries, specifically China, Myanmar, and Bhutan, and they all came in search of more fertile land, or to find river valleys, or to simply just invade the land. Now I got a very interesting point here. Other than the racial differences, which I will get into very shortly, there is a whole tribal, non-tribal duality recognized by the Constitution of India that gives certain benefits to the many tribal communities in the northeastern part of India. Now, this was to help them catch up with the rest of society in educational standards, as well as standards of living in general. Now, it's because of reasons like these that Northeasterners are often non-recognized and even misrecognized, or even thought of by the wider Indian society as foreigners, and they're seen as people who came from such places like China, Nepal, Thailand, or even Japan, and some call this withholding the Indianness from the Northeastern Indian people, which causes people to discriminate against and marginalize them. Now let's talk a little bit about the issues that Northeastern Indians face a little bit more. So pretty much the people of the northeastern part of India are often even seen differently by the people from other parts of India, like I mentioned. Now while it's true that Northeastern Indians have Mongoloid features that give them unique features on a whole, many people have assumptions about them. And the biggest problem that the people of other parts of the country have is that there's just very limited knowledge about the Northeast. In fact, most of the decision makers sitting in Delhi, they will often forget this very part of the country. Also, if you think that when Indians from other states travel to different states, that they're treated differently over there, so it makes sense that Northeasterners would be treated differently when they travel outside of their states. Well, think again. Now, there are a few complications that I'm going to talk about right now, which should give you a better picture of the problems here. It's pretty much human nature. It's like burnt in, hardwired in our DNA to look at people who don't actually look like us or talk like us in a different way. So think about it though. How do you develop understanding? Well, that's through communication. Now, how do you develop communication? Well, that's by speaking the same or similar language. And you can say that the general perception among a large portion of North Indians is that the Northeastern Indians are really unapproachable. Now, people from Maharashtra, Gujarat, as well as Bihar, India, can kind of get by because their languages are similar enough to Hindi to reduce the language barrier. A lot of Indian people and Northeastern people face problems because of this, because their languages just aren't that similar. There is also a geographical barrier. Many people point out that Northeast India used to actually be separated from the rest of India, and they started being connected to the Indian mainland not too long ago. Also, transport to and from the northeastern part of India is still not very developed. There are only a few trains and even fewer flights. As shown in the image that you'll see on your screen right now, there is a physical divide between the rest of India and northeastern states. Also remember that North India used to be pretty fragmented earlier on, but it got connected more easily because they were on the plains and enjoyed some cultural intermixing. And then when a ruler would occupy the region, they would then bring about their laws as well as their culture. And this created a cultural similarity in the region. Now, due to North India's geographical position, a kind of barrier was created when the cultural assimilation couldn't take place between the northeastern states and the rest of India. There's also a big issue when it comes to stereotyping. Now, did you know that when the Arabs began trading in India, that they started calling anyone who lived on the east side of the river Indus as Hindu? So back then, the river Indus used to be called the river Sindhu, but because the Arabs couldn't pronounce the S sound, they started pronouncing it with an H. Hence, we eventually got the name Hindustan. And like most Mongoloid featured people, there's that term Mongoloid again, they're referred to as Asians, and yes, while they are all Asians, everyone isn't Chinese. But because it's easier to the human mind to classify them all together, people think that they're all the same people. So in the same way, a lot of Indian people stereotype Northeast Indians too. For fact number 2, I want to share some information about the underrepresentation in society and media. So the northeastern states aren't very densely populated in the first place. A fraction of them come to North India for education or looking for jobs. Compared to the massive crowds of people of North Indians, Northeast Indians are statistically a minority. Mainland Indian society just hasn't seen enough of Northeastern Indians even after they started migrating to North India. We see Black, Asian, and Latin representation in African sitcoms, but nothing of the sort when it comes to Indian television. They aren't very well represented in Bollywood either. Take, for example, Priyanka Chopra's movie Mary Kom. Now, the movie is based on the life of the Olympic Indian boxer Mary Kom, who was from the state of Manipur. Now, instead of casting a Northeast Indian person, producers casted a not at all Northeast Indian looking Priyanka Chopra. And this is usually the big problem when it comes to representation of Northeast Indians in mainstream media, in that they aren't even represented at all. And the final thing I want to share is this. So just remember that the northeastern region of India is a very sensitive one, almost like Kashmir. Now, they have feuds with China over the borders of Arunachal Pradesh, and the Seven Sister States have been plagued by a lot of violence. Now, the feud with India, as well as the rise of separatist groups in the northeast, as well as the retaliation by the Indian army, mistrust, loss of faith, all of that, those have been prevailing in these regions for decades. And the more that the mainstream Indians don't do to fix the racist attitudes against Northeast Indians in their heart, the more that the Northeast Indian people will feel alienated from the rest of India. Now, it's because of this that Northeasterners really feel alienated, and it's because of this that, like, yes, a lot of Northeast Indians really feel completely alienated and just completely separate. And China actually sometimes tries to use this in their favor to create chaos in northeastern region.